Welcome back, my friends, to Senior Benefits Insider. I'm really glad you're here with me today. Take a breath, get comfortable, maybe set your coffee down for a moment, because what I'm about to share is important, and it directly affects millions of older Americans who are living on fixed incomes right now. I want to talk with you about a late-breaking update that has been quietly unfolding behind the scenes, one that most cable news headlines completely skipped over, but one that could matter a great deal for retirees, Social Security recipients, SSI and SSDI households, and anyone trying to stretch every dollar just a little bit further these days. Here's why this matters. When news breaks in the middle of the night, especially around money and government programs, it's usually not about making noise. It's about moving things forward. And that's exactly what happened here. In the early morning hours, while most of the country was asleep, the White House and Treasury finalized changes connected to the proposed $2,000 tariff dividend. That move quietly shifted seniors, especially low-income retirees, into a much more favorable position than they were in just days ago. Now let me slow this down and walk you through it clearly, without hype, without politics, and without confusion. Because I know how overwhelming financial headlines can feel, especially when you're on a fixed income and every decision matters. At the center of this update is tariff revenue. These are funds already collected by the federal government from taxes placed on imported goods. Unlike stimulus checks in the past, this money does not rely on Congress passing a brand new spending bill. The funds already exist. What needed to be decided was how that money would be returned and who should be prioritized. That's where this late-night decision comes in. Originally, most public discussion around this dividend focused on working households and middle-income earners who might have been affected by higher prices tied to tariffs. Seniors were barely mentioned. But when updated economic data landed on the desks of Treasury officials, the picture changed fast. The data showed something many of you already know from lived experience. Inflation hits retirees harder and faster than almost anyone else. If you're working, there's at least the possibility of a raise, extra hours, or changing jobs over time. If you're retired, there is no extra paycheck coming. When groceries go up, when utilities climb, when rent increases or prescriptions cost more, the money has to come from the same fixed check you were already budgeting down to the dollar. Treasury analysts reviewed new reports showing that seniors receiving lower monthly Social Security benefits were under far more strain than previously estimated. Households living on roughly $1,200 a month or less were cutting back on essentials at alarming rates. Not extras. Essentials. Food, heat, medical care. That data became impossible to ignore. And that's when something important happened. The tariff dividend framework was quietly restructured. Seniors living on fixed incomes were moved into a new priority category. This wasn't symbolic. It wasn't a talking point. It changed how eligibility is reviewed and how quickly payments can move forward once distribution begins. Here's what that means in plain English. Treasury reorganized the program into tiers. The highest tier is now focused on households that are most financially vulnerable and least able to adjust to rising prices. Fixed income became a key factor. Income stability, or lack of flexibility, became central. Seniors relying primarily on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or survivor benefits scored high in this model not because they earn more, but because their income does not change when costs rise. If you're receiving a modest Social Security check each month and that's your main income, your situation is now being evaluated very differently than before. Seniors are no longer lumped in with the general population and reviewed later. Many have been moved closer to the front of the line. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine a retiree receiving about $1,150 a month from Social Security. Rent goes up by $70. Utilities climb another $40. Groceries increase just enough that the monthly budget no longer balances. There's no cushion. That kind of household was identified in the data as experiencing immediate financial stress. Under the revised structure, households like this are now reviewed earlier and with fewer hurdles because their income sources are already documented and stable. Another important point I want to clear up is whether you need to apply. For most seniors, the answer is no. Treasury is using existing records from the Social Security Administration and the IRS. Your benefit history, identity, and payment information are already on file. That allows eligibility to be reviewed automatically without asking you to fill out new forms or jump through hoops. Now, there are a few situations where you might need to take action. If you've recently moved, changed banks, or updated your direct deposit information, you may receive a notice asking you to confirm those details. If that happens, respond promptly through official channels like your My Social Security or IRS online account. That helps keep your payment from being delayed. I also want to address a very common concern. Will receiving this $2,000 payment affect your Social Security, SSI, or SSDI benefits? According to Treasury and guidance shared with Social Security, the answer is no. This payment is considered a rebate funded by tariff revenue. It is not earned income. It does not reduce your monthly check. It does not trigger a benefit review. And it does not interfere with cost of living adjustments. For SSI recipients, where income rules are strict, officials clarified that this payment does not count as income for eligibility purposes. It stands on its own. The only gentle advice officials have offered is to use the funds for essential needs rather than letting a large balance sit untouched indefinitely, simply because some asset-based programs look at account balances over time. The intent here is relief, not complication. Timing is the next big question. While no exact payment dates have been released publicly, the priority shift matters. Seniors in the highest tier are now reviewed earlier in the process. Verification happens first. Then payment information is finalized. Then funds are released. You may see account updates or notices before money actually arrives. That's normal for large federal distributions. What's different this time is where seniors fall in that sequence. Many retirees are no longer waiting behind millions of other households. They're much closer to the front. I want to pause here and say this clearly. This does not mean every senior will automatically receive a payment. Eligibility still matters. But it does mean that fixed-income households are finally being recognized for the financial reality they live with every single month. So what should you do right now? Make sure your information is accurate. Check your Social Security and IRS records if you can. Stay alert for official notices. And be very cautious of scams. Treasury and Social Security will never call, text, or email you asking for personal information related to this payment. Any message like that should be ignored. Let me wrap this up with something personal. Over the years, I've talked with so many retirees who did everything right. They worked hard. They saved what they could. And still, rising costs have made life feel tighter and more uncertain. This update doesn't fix everything, but it does represent something meaningful. It shows that seniors on fixed incomes are being seen in real policy decisions, not just talked about. If this explanation helped you feel a little more informed and a little less anxious, please take a second to like this video. It really helps the channel reach other seniors who need clear, trustworthy information. Make sure you're subscribed to Senior Benefits Insider, because I'll continue bringing you calm, point-to-point updates as soon as new details are confirmed. And stay tuned, because the next updates are expected to focus on payment timelines, and I'll be right here walking you through every step. Thank you for spending this time with me.